Hi, I'm Natasha and welcome to another video. In today's video I have been thinking about the scripture, he will replace a crown of beauty for ashes. And I started this page off by writing out a prayer and covering that with some white acrylic, and as you can see now I'm adding some collage over the top. And I was drawn to this piece of scripture because I remembered a quote that I'd read probably about a year ago that said God's story does not end in ashes. And I remember at the time when I read it, it was at a time when I was coming out of a period of quite difficult things happening, and it did feel at the time like everything had been burnt to the ground. That is just how it felt. And I remember reading that quote just as I was coming out of that, just at a point where God was showing me a new direction to go and revealing things to me, and it really resonated. I was reminded that the time of burning down when the ashes were created, that was still difficult, that it hurt, that there was grieving to be done for the things that had been lost, but that that's not where the story ended. And we see this time and time again in the Bible, in the story of God's people, don't we, where it looks like it's all over, it looks like it's game over, and actually God, isn't done yet. And I guess ultimately we see that through the story of Jesus, where it looks hopeless, he's dead, and actually God's story isn't over, he's not finished, and Jesus, as we know, is resurrected. And so that's where I was thinking, I guess, when I created this piece. And you can see here I'm adding some collage. These are all collage papers that I've made, some with a jelly plate, some just with adding paint to it, some are like the scrap ends where I sort of use my brayer when I'm using my jelly plate. And I've gone with quite a neutral palette, and I'm just covering up that prayer that I had made, and you can see here how there's different textures. I've added some sewing paper in there, there's book pages, and it just adds texture to the piece. When I was first thinking about this piece, I had quite a strong image in my head of a girl with flowers, and I had tried to sketch it several times and it just wasn't going well, so I decided in the end to just use a photograph. So I found this image on Unsplash, which is free images that you can use, and I printed it onto some matte sticker paper, and I used the matte paper, it's like a vinyl, and it's waterproof, so it's good for use in mixed media if you're going to be adding paints and things over the top. And I'm just placing it on the page now. I've added some washi tape as well, the orange blues, the floral washi tape, just for a bit of a pop of colour, and I'm just popping that piece into place. And then I decided to add a bit more colour, and I used my white acrylic paint and some ink, some Delaruni ink, just to add a little bit of colour to the piece. Next I wanted to add some flowers to signify the crown, this idea that God replaces the ashes with a crown of beauty, and so I stamped some flower shapes onto some paper and then cut them out and put them as like a floral crown around the girl's head. Next I decided to just add a little bit more texture and depth to the piece with some pencils and neo colours. As I was making these marks, I was thinking about those things that had felt like it had been burnt down, and just reflecting back on that period of time, and I guess grieving for those things that felt like they've been lost. And it's a really important thing to do. We're not very good at it quite often. We want to just ignore the things that hurt, but actually it's really important to process them and move through them, so that we can come out the other side. And it's different for everybody, and how for some people they can do that quickly, for other people it takes a lot longer, and it depends on the circumstances and what it is. But I was just reminded when I was creating this of just how important it is to process those things that hurt, because God knows them anyway, and actually working through them with God is a lot easier than trying to do it by yourself. I'm now just adding some of the lettering, which again, I typed these up on my iPad, and then I printed them again onto that matte vinyl sticker paper, which I just find a lot easier than gluing things down and stamping things out as well. And so I'm adding the phrase, God's story never ends in ashes. And then I also add the scripture as well, which comes from Isaiah. And there we have it, the finished page, just finishing off with a little bit of gold Posca to add some highlights. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that it's helped to inspire you to go and create your own journaling page and to reflect on the journey that God has brought you through. Until next time, goodbye.